I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me. That I will faithfully execute. America first. Protection of the nation from foreign terror.
Hello and welcome to this special Inside the Americas from New York. 1 year ago, Donald Trump won the U.S. presidential election, sending shockwaves around the world. It was the most divisive election in U.S. history, and since then the line has been drawn even further in the sand, with more and more Americans being pushed to extremes of either loving President Trump or hating him. Today, you'll meet Americans from both sides of the political fence who have had their lives turned upside down in the wake of Trump's victory. This is the divided states of America. Here in Times Square, you'll find Americans of every shape, size, color, religion, gender. It's a real melting pot, like what the Founding Fathers first intended. And yet, under President Trump, many minority groups have gone from being protected under the Obama administration to feeling persecuted. Our Washington correspondent Philip Crowther went to meet some of these people who live in very real fear of what Trump's years in power will bring.
Baltimore is crime-ridden, poverty-stricken, and majority African-American. The city voted massively against Donald Trump. Marcus Mason and Ronald William grew up here and think more tensions are inevitable.
When we do, our protests, peaceful protesting, where terrorists, a Knoxville KKK member, they come out and they have guns and pitchforks, like I say, but he'll call that a peaceful protest.
They feel like they can just do whatever they want now because they got the juice behind them, and the juice is the president.
Protesters gather in front of the White House every week. Many minorities feel targeted by what they consider unlawful measures. Layla Ayub is an Afghan-American law student. She protested against Trump's now stopped travel bans and says a new anti-Muslim sentiment has taken hold.
Somebody was walking behind me on the street last week and they were just shouting, "Don't go into that store because they don't serve Arabs." People feel comfortable voicing views that are bigoted or racist.
Layla says she is encouraged by a renewed youthful activism in America. These are the so-called dreamers, illegal immigrants who arrived in the U.S. as children. Barack Obama's DACA program could well be cut if Congress doesn't push back. Young Americans like Ricardo Campos, originally from El Salvador, are facing possible deportation.
To be pretty much derooted and put it on a plane, sent back to a country that, I don't belong any longer, that I don't even know the culture any longer, because this is my culture. So I feel outraged. I hope Trump sees his face.
Is Donald Trump your president? No.
Faced with deportation, they say they are here to stay, as is their protest movement against Donald Trump.
Donald Trump has declared all-out war on the U.S. media. Trump's battles with the press are of particular interest here at New York's Columbia University, home to one of the top journalism schools in the country. Its independent and nonprofit publication, the Columbia Journalism Review, is the most respected voice in press criticism today. Kyle Pope is its editor and publisher. One of your recent reviews was headlined "The Year That Changed Journalism." What's changed exactly, and is Donald Trump to blame?
Everything changed. I think, honestly, and it largely is due to Donald Trump, although a lot of the issues that we're dealing with have been sort of festering in media for a long time, and he sort of forced us to deal with them at once. And it's been quite painful, frankly. He's also forced us to really think about how do we talk to the public about the value of journalism. And that's something that a lot of us have assumed that we didn't need to do, that we were sort of above that. but he's reminded us that we actually have to tell our story to the public in a way that resonates with them.
Trump's position as well seems to have opened a door to a real distrust, to even attacks against the press. And I know you yourself delivered testimony to Congress on threats to the press. I want to show you something, and I want to get your opinion on what this is.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I do.
What did you think the first time you saw that?
It's outrageous, right? I mean, it's for one thing, it's completely juvenile, and it's sort of tawdry, and it's beneath what you would expect a president to show. But it's, you know, he clearly has recognized that there's a value to his base of supporters in attacking the media.
Why do you think that people respond to this kind of thing? Is it just apathy? People need to be entertained? They don't care about real issues, real policy, what's really going on?
The press in America, and I think maybe the press around the world, has been sort of paternalistic. You know, there was a sort of an elitist feel to the media, and a lot of people in America didn't feel like what they were reading and watching on television addressed their problems. So now it's like, what can we do to fix it? And there's a lot of ideas out there, and again, it's healthy. It's healthy.
Are right-leaning media like Fox or Breitbart, are they worried about this anti-journalism feel from Donald Trump as well, getting to them too, eventually?
They think it was there before from the left. They think under Obama and the Democratic administration, they were being attacked. So it's sort of fair game in their mind. But you raise a good point. I mean, I don't really think they've thought this through. And I think that there is a danger that all press gets sort of lumped in together. So I do think that there's a risk that they could suffer the same problems. But right now it's all a partisan game.
Staten Island can seem a world away from the glitz of Manhattan or the brownstones of Brooklyn, and yet it's also part of New York City. And while the whole of NYC voted overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton last November, 3 out of 5 people here in Staten Island voted for Donald Trump.
He's doing some things better than he's getting credit for. Our economy is really incredible at the moment.
We sort of like our conservative candidates.
All in all, I think he's doing really good.
Other Trump voters have found it more difficult to live in California, another state that backed Hillary Clinton last year. Trump voters there have been ostracized to the point where some of them have actually decided to leave.
Over the last year, scenes like this have become almost ritual. Democrat supporters in Los Angeles protesting the Trump administration. Protected by police, Trump supporters shout back.
Commies go home!
The profound political cleavage is broadening into a social one. David Goss founded a dating website during the campaign, but it's only for right-wing romantics.
It's making dating great again.
Goss says his website now has 50,000 members.
About 2-3 years ago, you could say, oh, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. They'd be like, all right, that's fine. That it wasn't even brought up on a first date. It was something that was an afterthought. And now it's become first date talk. People want to know where you're at.
Goss and his wife Sonia were born and raised in California. But with the growing political tensions, they're considering moving to a more conservative state. It's a choice the Chabot family have already made. With his wife and 4 children, Paul Chabot moved right after the presidential election. They left California to settle in Texas.
We basically are refugees from California now living in a red state that is not only accepting of us, but embraces the very values that are so near and dear to us.
This former law enforcement officer has created his own company, Conservative Move. With his partner, Chabot helps Republican families move to red states. Ahead of the 2018 midterm elections, he wants to create conservative communities and keep the state of Texas in Republican hands.
American artist MARILYN Minter has been exhibiting her work in New York for decades. She's now using her influence to fight the Trump administration with a pop-up resistance store here at the Brooklyn Museum. She and art historian Adriana Campbell got 70 anti-Trump artists together to donate their work for the cause. Hello.
Hi.
So this is Anger Management, the pop-up store. Yeah. I heard that you even have protest thongs.
Yeah, we do. We'll get them for you. Okay, this is my old friend, Lori Simmons, and she made, they're selling out, she made a resistance thong.
Mine says, "Help," by the Statue of Liberty.
So is this pop-up store, is it more anti-Trump or more pro something else?
Pro.
It's very pro, it's very much about hope, and I think that we're in a time where people are very frustrated, and so we really wanted to give people a feeling of hope and solidarity.
So 70 artists who donated their work free of charge,
yes.
Obviously a profit's being made. Where is the money going from this sale?
The proceeds are going to the ACLU and Planned Parenthood, primarily. Some artists are gifting their donations to other smaller charities of their choosing.
Last year, 40% of women voted for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. How do you explain that? And do you think that you can change their minds with things like this, like anger management?
No, I don't think we can.
I think we can.
You do?
You know, after the Women's March, because we were on the same bus, yeah. I had a hat, and I forgot, because Laurie Anderson made us all hats. And the hat was really nice, so I kept wearing it. And then I took a flight, and all these women started coming. All these women first were smiling at me. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out why. And then later on, they started coming up to me when I sat down, and some of them said, "Oh, I went to DC," or "I wish I'd been with you." And I think having these objects in the world really can
That's why I love
remind people, remind people what's important.
I'm an old activist, and I feel like there's a whole lot of women in my age group, and maybe a little younger, that want to think the patriarchy will take care of them. And so they were threatened by basically being equal.
We're now 1 year into the Trump presidency, 1 year from the midterms. Do you think, I know you said last year when you spoke here next to Madonna at the Brooklyn Museum, "I am the most frightened I've ever been." How do you feel now, 1 year before the midterms? Do you have hope? Still frightened?
I'm still frightened, but I have a lot of hope, because I see that the resistance has stopped everything he's tried to do. And I think, between the court system and certain individuals, I mean, even the climate change, there are whole states that are still enacting everything that the climate change would want.
The past year has seen the U.S. grow even more divided, with over 60% of voters now saying President Trump has done more to fuel divisions in the country than heal them. Only time will tell if his administration can reunite the divided states of America.